Hello, everybody. Welcome to this interview by Core Recruitment. Thank you very much for joining us today. Core Recruitment's been running this interview series to promote some positivity into the marketplace, and we're really lucky to be joined by lots of different business leaders who are innovating and driving their businesses forward. So please sit back, relax for 20, 25 minutes, and hopefully get a little bit inspired. For those of you that don't know Core Recruitment, we're a recruitment specialist who are global, and we deal to mid to senior level, kind of like exec and non-exec positions. And if you want to see any more of the interviews that we're recording as part of the series, then they're all available on our website, www.corerecruitment.com. Hey, Tom, how are you?
Very well, thank you. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too. So I love clays, and you can probably see from my social media feeds that I go a lot, and I really, really, really like shooting things. For those who just think I'm completely insane, you're obviously the founder of Clays, which is a massively successful concept with massive expansion plans. You're now turning slightly red because obviously I'm embarrassing you, but can you tell us a little bit about the concept and how you got it started to get us kicked off?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess I keep using the phrase we're part of the new wave of kind of competitive socializing, but I guess it's no longer a new wave. But we are one of these kind of activity sense kind of focused bars, great food, great cocktails, and then an enjoyable game, as you said, is a link to the British sport of shooting. So no animals, nothing gets hurt. They're all nice and safe, but you're holding, for many people, the kind of the first chance to hold a real gun. And I think it's in a week or so we have our millionth customer walk in the door, which is quite exciting for us to have
Wow.
that many people. And I believe the number of people who actually shoot in the UK, at least on a female demographic basis, is something like 36,000 hold a shotgun license. So we've had just under 500,000 people come in and female shooters. So we've blown through the kind of statistics, which kind of shows it's kind of more suited for people having a good time rather than people like you who love to shoot things, as you say.
Thanks for that. What are you going to do for the millionth shot?
I didn't think about that. I know that the guys at Flight Club do these amazing kind of like big checks that come out and they celebrate with the thing. We should probably do something similar to that. Don't want to copy them too much, but we'll probably do something big.
Something big, something big.
Something big.
That's phenomenal. And it just to because I don't think people realize this when they actually go in, but these are not guns. These are real shotguns, aren't they? That have been refurbished. Is that right?
Yeah, they call it like a deactivation process. So we actually had a funny story at the very beginning, at the founding of this, where our bank at the time asked us to fill in this big form saying like, do we buy anything from any countries that are on kind of restricted lists? And what we do is we buy real shotguns from Turkey. We deactivate them. They go through about 9 different partners to get them into the game and experience that you have. But we had to tell the bank that we were not only buying something from Turkey, which they wanted to know more detail about, but then as a bar group, we had to say we were going to buy 120 shotguns, and they wondered, why does a bar group need to do this? But we're still here, so that process bit worked. But yeah, we take the real shotgun, we fill it full of our own technology. We've got patents now in 39 countries around the world. We just filed some more last month. So just this kind of like opportunity to build and own your own technology was a really important one early on. And we feel part of this experience needs you to hold something that you've probably not done before. Again, using those stats around how many people have actually shot guns, I think our numbers are probably sub 90% have actually ever held a real shotgun before. So it's quite exciting as an experience for people.
Absolutely. I mean, I definitely want to get into the technology side of things shortly, but first question I wanted to kind of kick off with is that competitive socializing, kind of like as a whole, London is very much like the epicenter of kind of everything which is going on. We've definitely seen in the past kind of 12 months that certain concepts seem to be doing better than other concepts. Now, one thing that I've experienced a lot from being into clays is like the quality of the F&B operation, the quality of the cocktails, the quality of the finish. It's exceptional, it's elevated, it's next level. How much of your success versus, I don't know, don't want to talk directly about any of your kind of competitors directly, but how much of your success is down, do you think, to that premiumization?
I think after that initial kind of 12 months, that repeat customer piece, that's almost solely down to that. I think people go through and try and do these kind of cycles of doing us and crazy golf and darts and axe throwing and all these things. And the ones that you go back to are the ones where the experience has been more. So yes, some of them have great games. I think our game is well up there in terms of what's a fun thing, but it's kind of the hook to get someone in, and then people come back because of the hospitality. So having the team we've got is what's kind of led us to being able to focus on the slightly more premium end of things there. So, exceptionally high quality of everything from the products that go in. We talk about things like our lemon sole that we do. We can trace it back down to the exact boat that it came off. And you look at our kind of charcuterie plates and stuff it's like the highest end. We hired a couple of people recently. And they said that the reason they joined us was because they saw that the kind of top end suppliers we stocked them, and they were like, well, like any company that cares enough about that. And you get this experience where someone comes to the game, they have a couple of drinks, they see other people having food, but they've booked something else after. And the next time they come, that second time spend is always considerably more, and there's always food on that second order. So we think the hospitality bit and that premium bit you refer to is probably one of our biggest successes. But it's almost odd, like you didn't think it was the key thing at the time. You thought, let's make a game where it's as fun as possible and people will come back. And but no, it seems to be they enjoy the experience. And we especially see it with corporates, that kind of safety piece that that if you book an event with us, the food and drink are going to be top notch, and therefore, you're happy to book again.
Absolutely. I've got to say, we booked a corporate space in December. So I feel like I work for Clay's, and it's like, and everyone else is going to watch this and go, Christian's got a favorite. I do. But it's kind of like, but we booked a corporate space in the Soho site, and literally that free bar thing that you've got in there, it's like, because corporates can kind of be a wee bit, the first 15 minutes can feel a little bit awkward. And just the fact that you're getting somebody a drink, you're making them for them, you're bringing them over, you're showing them the kind of whole experience. I think it was absolutely brilliant. And, hats off to you 100% for kind of like, doing that. Now, one of the other things which has been a massive challenge for kind of other businesses has been about attracting funding, and lots of people have been really struggling to kind of like do that, especially in the past kind of 12 to 18 months. I don't think you've had that same experience, and I just wanted to find out a little bit about the approach that you've taken, which might be a little bit different to others.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've gone through a couple of different cycles of this. So at the very beginning, when it was just an idea in the back of my head, to raise money at that point, and this was just pre-COVID, it was a really interesting point that you're kind of going out. So we raised our first kind of 3-ish million off about 60 investors. So average ticket size of about 50,000. So you're hitting a really high number of people, and the EIS scheme by the government, the tax supported one, made a huge difference to this. So at points we would kind of do a pitch to someone, we'd explain it, we'd show them early iterations of the game, we'd show them what we wanted to do in terms of fit out and all these bits. They would then go to their friends and go, I've just invested in this. And what do you think? And one of the most memorable emails that went out from one of our long-standing shareholders was one to all of his friends that said, guns, booze, and EIS, who's in? And it seems to be this, at least in the high net worth kind of space, many of them shoot, many of them like a gin and tonic. So we just kind of hit this like almost perfect seam of wealthy people who wanted to use some of their tax kind of pieces here on the EIS, and it just really flowed really nicely. So those initial guys kind of filled our first round. Our second round was basically just their friends. So it was people who couldn't get into the first one. So we went from kind of pitching to lots of people to almost people begging to have their friends come and invest almost. Begging is probably too strong a word there. It was still a fair old fight. And then as we kind of transitioned out of that, we ended up getting our first money in from Imbiba, which was a really enjoyable experience. And we've had Lizzie, who now is the MD there, on our board since then. And it's been great to have, I guess, that kind of tick of approval of someone who knows what they're doing. They actually didn't put all that much money in at that stage, partly because our current investors all took up their preemption rights again, and we've had an incredibly supportive shareholder base. And then more recently, these kind of bigger check sizes, we've gone into kind of bigger growth and opened sites like Soho and Birmingham. We've had more interest from externals. So we've actually been really lucky that a lot of this seems to be not quite inbound, but through referrals or through just by pure chance, almost customers who then have got friends in the investment space and introducing them. And then luckily, I guess the quality of the team have been able to make this a fairly easy decision for them. So that cycle has always been quite quick, especially when we took in our biggest check size from a big European private equity kind of family office, which is formerly known as Otium, now known as Hydrina. And they're our partners for the US, but they just within a few weeks were confident enough that we were of the ilk they wanted in this space, and they've been looking for something like 24 months. So it's kind of like we've been lucky in the sense that competitive socializing was doing so well at that time in kind of 22, 23, 24, that people were interested in the space. And then, as you said, hopefully some of the offerings and some of the parts we do just really made it quite easy. But that really initial one, it was just getting our foothold into a network of high net worths and them just really kind of spreading like a wildfire amongst them. And they still are some of our most staunch shareholders. I think we're up to something like 130 people on our cap table now. So it's a really big investor base. And many of them run companies, many of them are high up at big law firms or banks. And therefore, I think we do quite well on our kind of corporate events on the back of almost friends and family. Is what our kind of shareholders have become as they've carried on supporting us through our journey to today.
130 people having an invested interest in your business. I mean, that just sounds pretty stressful to me. What proportion of your time would you say that it takes to kind of like, to work on that?
We decided really early on, and we've been very lucky that we kind of set ourselves up as a much bigger company than we were when we were just that one bar in the city at Moorgate. So we kind of run ourselves. We try to run ourselves almost like a PLC in many ways. So we do regular investor updates to our shareholder base. So what we find is that if we share information early and proactively, many of our shareholders, their emails are typically just thank you, or we've had a great time, we went recently, our company's coming this Christmas. And therefore it's not been like a difficult process at any point. I have always thought it would be a difficult process. People really drilling you down on numbers, but I guess we've been quite lucky with our year-on-year growth. Every year we've opened, and like-for-like growth in our venues has always done really well as well. So I think people are largely happy with their investment. I think if things got very tough, that's when maybe it would be quite difficult to have 130 angry people at you. I always think of that scene from The Big Short where who's the Batman character? Whoever he is, but he's Michael Burry is sitting there and he's doing this kind of big short on the market, and all of his investors are emailing him every 2 seconds saying like, give me my money back and what have you done? So I do sit with that. But there is a nice moment at the very end that at some point when Clays does provide exits for our shareholders, it will be a really nice moment, I think, to send the email saying, please find your check enclosed.
Absolutely. Now, Clays feels a little bit like now that, like, obviously you have an operating business, and then there's this whole kind of like brands, like, that obviously you're building the whole technology side of things as well. Like the tech's brilliant, but kind of like just tell us a little bit about what went into developing that tech and what your future plans are with it.
So, I mean, it was one of these initial pieces that we wanted to build on our own and own our own tech. That was always like a really kind of core part to what we wanted to do. We didn't want to be buying something else off the shelf. And I guess we were kind of lucky that we were forced to do this because what was on offer at the time wasn't, was either kiddies arcade games or super high end, systems built for the Olympic shooters, which wasn't really suitable for what we wanted to do. So building that technology just became like a journey throughout. And I guess luckily coming from a kind of technology background, not feeling intimidated to go out there and find partners who could help build us and build all those parts around it became a really like a fairly enjoyable journey as we went through. So we built, as I said, it takes 9 partners to get us to the end product that you play. And our goals going forward on this now are to either open this up to things like franchise opportunities. So countries where, as I said, we've got 39 countries, we've got patents and IP around the world. So those are kind of our target countries to go after, which range everywhere from Japan, Singapore, UAE, America, Australia, China's on the list there somewhere. Just as this kind of like defensible moat around what we've built. You'll know there's quite a lot of the crazy golf concepts and even really clever concepts like Flight Club got copied fairly quickly in their life cycle, and we've been fairly lucky that we've not had any major competitors come in. So it kind of opens up this window now where our ability to start selling our technology, installing it in other people's venues, building what a customer wants. At the moment, to run a Clays requires quite a lot of infrastructure in terms of teams and everything else. So getting that tech to be battle hardened enough that it can go down to a normal, to someone who wants to install 2 dartboards and one of the Clays shooting pegs in their venues. We think that opportunity is it's probably in the next 6 to 12 months is probably on our horizon, and a great way for us to organically grow and protect our brand a little bit, just because no one else will really shoehorn their way into the space.
So that's it's very. I mean, you're obviously thinking about the future with that one, which is phenomenal. Now, your background prior to Clay's was obviously climate change risk, not obviously at all, climate change and risk management. So, what got you into hospitality? Because that's quite a gear change, right?
Yeah, felt like quite a change at the time as well. So, working for that kind of green energy tech startup, it was I was employee number one or two, and we grew to from like something like 40K turnover to hundreds of million plus a year after 5 years, and kind of this big investment journey and all the infrastructure that we built there, and then a successful exit to Shell. So it was a really enjoyable journey, that piece. And actually, the exit to Shell, we knew kind of the leadership level that this was coming through. So it was this window of going from green energy tech, where my background and my degree sit, going through to working for one of the world's biggest oil companies. And not that I've got anything against that at all, but it was like it felt like a real change, and it also felt like it was like the end of a journey. And then almost by, I guess, pure chance, kind of Clay's came up, and it kind of hit two things. One was the exit from there and the relatively small amount of money I got when selling my shares to Shell. So I knew that there was a chance to do something different, and I wasn't married at the time. We didn't own a house. There was no risks or children in the mix or anything like this. So it felt like a time to just take a risk and go. Like, it almost couldn't have happened at a better time in my life. I was hitting my 32, which I heard is the most common age to start a business, which I thought was quite surprising. It was exactly that point. So it became this kind of like perfect, like risk-free time. Like, if that money came or went, it didn't really make a difference, but it was a chance to kind of almost roll the dice. And then at the same time, the sector was really starting to take off. We kind of got a core group of kind of 8 friends who are dotted all around north, south, east, west London, some a little bit further out. And every time we used to meet up. We'd always meet at a pub, and that was fine. But after a couple of dry Januaries, a few guys had extended their dry Januaries to not drinking anymore. And what we realised that the kind of places to go then were these activity bars, flight club, swingers. These kind of places were just the absolute perfect place for us to go, because the guys who weren't drinking, it didn't really make much of a difference. Everyone else, had a good time. So I'm a personal lover of these type of concepts, and I'm quite a competitive soul, so I enjoy these things a lot. And our Christmas parties for the company have always been at these kind of places, and I will really get quite upset if I don't win. Not outwardly, but very bitter. Actually, our bar manager at City is like my nemesis. Me and Fran, he beat me at fair game a couple of years ago, and he got the big teddy bear, and he still sends me a photo quite regularly of the teddy bear in the corner of his room, just to remind me that I didn't come first. So I love these concepts, and then almost by pure chance, while working in the green energy tech space, I met someone who was selling shotguns and helped them sell shotguns. They bought a big simulator, and it just so happened I was there with my now wife. I don't think that's related to this, maybe, but she's a vegetarian since birth, never held a gun before, and we did this simulator, and she was shocked the fact we were shooting bears and deer, but really enjoyed the fact she was holding a gun, this kind of big smile on her face. So it helped us go to that point of, wow, we should definitely make this with what feels like a real gun, but we should make this a fun, non-threatening game. And I think if we took this out of a field in Wiltshire, where the guy had to build a bar because all these stag doos and hen doos kept turning up and bringing their own crates of booze, and he realised he wasn't selling more shotguns. What he created was a mini flight club in the middle of the countryside. So we built our own technology and brought it into the centre of London, and took a bit of a risk on a 12,500 square foot in an area where the pub used to close at the weekend, which scared a lot of our investors, that we were going to an area that was so Monday to Friday. And now here we sit with our Saturdays being our highest covers of the week. And the pub around the corner now opens on a Saturday and also does very well. So it's kind of this nice kind of almost full circle, and it's just been this nice journey. And we were just lucky at the time with the investment, and I think we were the luckiest that the money landed the day before COVID hit. Because if it had landed after that, it wouldn't have ever landed probably. And if it had landed any earlier, we'd have signed a lease and then been on the hook for the whole of COVID on some huge property in the centre of London. So there's so much luck involved in this piece as well to get us where we are.
That's incredible. Now, I'm sure, like, I mean, hindsight's a beautiful thing and all of that kind of stuff, but like, not every day is a sunny day in business. So, can you tell us about any kind of like really stressful moments you've had or anything which has not gone according to plan and what you learned from it?
Sure. Trying to think of one that's not too bad, but
Oh,
also,
go on. You don't need to name names.
yeah, exactly. I mean, you are right. There's it feels like a fairly regular thing at the moment, and not coming from the industry, it's been really interesting. I found the industry press and the kindness of people who work in the industry, including you guys, and certainly you and Stuart from Core have been so supportive and kind across this journey of at least me not knowing the sector, and it feels like this is a particularly tough time. It seems to feel that almost all the time, and despite the fact we're growing and opening new sites and got opportunities dotted elsewhere, it feels like a fairly tough one. So when it comes to like learnings and muck-ups, um, there's lots of them for sure because we're new and we try not to repeat the same mistake. But one of the big ones I felt really early on was not taking advantage of things when they came. Like there's an element to moving quickly when an opportunity presents itself and not kind of dragging your feet. And I remember back when we were raising that very, very first amount of money, we had what would have been one of our largest investors, and he's in the top 10 of the Sunday Times rich list. He's not one of our investors now because he didn't put his money in, but I got a phone call from his money manager on like a Sunday evening, and I think I was in Switzerland at the time at a friend's wedding, and he called up and said, "Can I have the bank details to send you whatever it was, £500,000?" So by far our biggest investment. And I was like, "Oh, I'm a few drinks in. I'm in a crowded place. I don't really want to read out our bank details. Do you mind if I do it on Monday when I'm back in the office?" And he said, "Yeah, not a problem." And then come Monday, the report started coming out that this bug was sweeping the world and was going to shut down the world. Almost like that was the kind of tipping point of it. And then no matter what I did, I couldn't get that guy back. And we lost that investment. It kind of felt, and I mean, it was a very, in the grand scheme of things, a very minor thing. And ultimately he'd have missed out quite a lot on the growth that we've had. But I just remember thinking at the time, like, if an opportunity comes, you've got to actually just go for it and grab it. And that's a very small example, but we felt the same thing in a number of opportunities, whether it's site acquisition or hiring really, really great talent. That if you push fast and push hard, you typically, it will always end badly if it's going to end badly, or it gets locked down and wins. So I guess that was one of my biggest learnings. A small thing that
Yeah,
kind of
I mean,
carried through, if that makes sense.
someone calls you up and says, "I'm going to transfer you £500,000. Give them your banking details, mate." I mean,
Yeah, that is a stupid one. Yeah.
I mean, wow. Okay, fine. No, I'm definitely with you on that one. So tell us about the American expansion because it's super exciting and what you've got coming up over the next couple of years.
So I mean, America was always one of our goals. We thought just like things like golf and darts are very British things. We know the shooting was a very American thing, and there's some arcade games out there called I think it's called Big Buck Hunter, and it's like a plastic gun shooting a little screen. And they did a latest version of it, which has girls in bikinis carrying around like ring numbers in between rounds, and you shoot deer, and but it sells across the whole of America, and it was like the fastest selling game for multiple years. So we always knew the American market was going to be a great one for us. There's double the amount of guns as there are people or something in the country. So we've always known that we should go out there. But as I guess we've grown and we've seen some of our friends in the industry go out there, we know it's a tough market. We know you've got to have a huge bankroll slash kind of
And
war.
just sorry to interrupt, but is clay pigeon shooting a big thing there?
I mean, sport wise, yes, they are very good at it, but they also just kind of do all types of shooting. So they call it skeet shooting, which don't Urban Dictionary that word. That's not a nice word. But they call it skeet shooting. It's sporting shooting. It is something that I think the gold medalist for the men's skeet shooting for the last however many Olympics has been the same guy who has, I think at one point in competition, hadn't missed a single shot in 680 shots or something. And he is, so I think they do very well on the kind of world stage on this. They're known for shooting, but it's a more casual thing. Like they've got gun ranges. We all know this from, if we've ever been to Vegas and you go to one of the shooting ranges and you can try these things. So taking shooting and making it safe and competitive and giving people a cocktail or a beer in their hand, we think those two things will go really well hand in hand. And we've seen it from the growth of the guys who have gone out there, the flight clubs, the putt shacks, swingers, and F1 Arcade. Like, these guys are going out there, and the sites where they've got it right are just absolutely flying. And the US really enjoy this thing that we think is very common now in London, because there's so many different competitive socializing concepts. And so we feel really good that that was going to happen, but we were just almost to raise money each time we open a new site. The ability for us to raise that amount of capital to go out there felt like it would be a really tall order to do that. And almost at kind of a perfect timing, Hadrina came in and did a large part of our kind of third or fourth round and helped us fund our Birmingham and some of our Soho site. And there were this group of like hyper smart, hyper aggressive guys who were just able to go out there and make fairly big deals and make big commitments. And part of the investment in us was to agree a window of exclusivity to see if we could get a US joint venture deal. And those conversations flowed really nicely. And me and my board feel really, really confident that these guys are going to support us. So they have committed to rolling out 11, although we think it's going to be closer to 15 sites over the next kind of 5 years in the US, kind of ramping up from, we hope, one opening at the end of this year, maybe early next year, to a real cadence where these things can open, and big venues in some of the US's best cities. And at the same time, this ability for us to grow through other partners and other bits as we go out there. But yeah, it's hopefully kicks off pretty soon. And one of the great parts of this is it's a relatively unlimited checkbook, and it's our team delivering it. So we feel like we've got the kind of, sometimes you have to give up control in these things. You sell off a franchise and you lose most of the journey. And not that we're in it for the journey, but we feel confident that we're the ones that can get this thing launched and go and just watch it fly.
Excellent. That is absolutely incredible. In terms of like the UK expansion side of things, because there's a lot of people talking kind of like at the moment about kind of like London versus kind of like regional and that kind of side of things as well. Like, how's Birmingham performing? Is there plans to do more kind of like, UK sites as well?
Yeah, I mean, Birmingham had a fantastic Christmas, which is really good. And the team there are really kind of firming up and feeling really, really confident and strong. And we feel like we're fitting into the fabric of Birmingham a bit more. We definitely made a bunch of mistakes at the beginning, as I think anyone who tries to expand does. And listening more to the team and understanding has helped us go. So to see our Christmas numbers double up there versus last year have been a real kind of positive. And the board took the instead of to build the private room that we actually didn't build at the very beginning, so we expanded the size of it. And since then, it's been delivering numbers that we're really, really happy with. So I think we want to see that like kind of settle for a year before we kind of take on the real commitment of expanding out beyond those. So with two sites opening, so Birmingham and Soho opening within 10 months of each other, we've kind of expanded our number of sites by double, but our number of square feet by triple from where we were just kind of 18 months ago. So we want to kind of take a good chunk of this year to settle, see the impact of things. I think there's some larger macro bits that are maybe a bit scary about how people spend and what they spend their money and time on. And although we've always had exceptionally profitable sites at a site level, we want to make sure that this goes at the same time as us kind of putting a lot of effort into growing the US. We don't want to spread ourselves too thin and muck it all up at the same time. So we are excited about other cities in the UK. We hear from agents and our friends in the industry that some cities are absolutely incredible. So we feel pretty confident the likes of Leeds, Manchester, Dublin, Cardiff, Glasgow. These are kind of cities that we really think we can do, but we don't think we'll build the venues that we've built so far. These kind of big things. We want to get our technology, and we've already made adaptations to the technology to kind of fit different markets. And we think there's a perfect fit of something that probably sits in the 7,000 to 8,000 square foot rather than these kind of 12 to 20,000 square foot venues that we've been building. And that way we think we can fit into the fabric of the city better and maybe be less competitive socializing and more great bar with some fun activities on the side. I think those two things, like you can't be as infrequent as we are in London. In London, it almost doesn't matter if someone only ever came once to us. We're lucky we've got a great repeat customer base from both like our online bookings and also our corporate ones. But you couldn't survive in the likes of Birmingham and others with that kind of mentality. And again, we've seen a great amount of repeat customers for our Birmingham site, and we just got to build on that and feel confident that the model we're rolling out works. And today, I'm not sure we fully know if we could go into Leeds and absolutely fly in the same way we've done in London and in Birmingham after kind of 9-12 months.
Absolutely. Well, when you open in Glasgow, and I grew up in Glasgow, so I can say this, but you're going to have chains on those guns, like literally super gluing them to the venue. I'm just throwing that out there right now. But anyway, there you go. So as I guess as a newcomer to our sector, to an industry, Tom, like, I mean, you do look at things slightly differently to people who have been in the sector and grown up kind of like, man and boy. And the whole kind of like, I don't want to get too deeply into the whole political kind of situation at the moment, but it does feel a little bit anti-hospitality kind of like a lot of the time. As an entrepreneur who's running a business, who's being successful, that kind of side of things, what do you think would give you some more confidence for expansion in the UK to grow? And what do you think this government can do for the next 12 months to kind of like, better facilitate business?
Oh, I can't say you're not going to be political and ask a very pointy one. I mean, from our point of view, it's the cost to run these venues, which is typically people and rent and rates. These are the key things. So the industry seems to be very hot, and we love listening to Kate at UK Hospitality and other industry kind of leaders talking about the changes that should happen here. And we kind of coming from the energy space where it's so incredibly highly regulated but so old fashioned. What the previous company did was it looked, how do you change things for the better, like for the whole industry? And you see a whole bunch of new energy providers, like Octopus Energy didn't exist back when I joined the kind of green energy space, and you see the growth of those guys and the kind of shrinking of those of the other ones. And they're not trying to change regulation; they're just finding a better way to run, like more efficiently. So I think for anyone to run, like to truly like break into a space or a sector and do something, you've got to do something different. You can't just churn through. And like, I know the impact of these rates for us it felt huge. It felt like a real pain to see that come off our bottom line for our forecast next year. The same thing happened when kind of the national minimum wage jumped by 10% last year, and you felt that you had to push all of the paybacks up. So it really impacted us across the board to do that. So you kind of sit here thinking, how do we get around these, not loophole type things, but how do you do things differently to make it to work better? So the government today, to help us operate, I think can make some fairly obvious changes that would make all of us, all of our lives better. And then on that kind of entrepreneurial piece and starting a business, I mentioned earlier, like it was like the perfect time for me. And you kind of either need to be, as I was, a bit stupid, or you need to be very kind of confident to go into to try something different, to give up your life, your career, your well-paying job in a sector that looked like it's going quite well, to kind of take that risk. And I know the government do this, things like the investment scheme, the EIS scheme. Like I don't think we'd have raised money without that. So that's something the government, and I know they expanded it in the recent budget, which is fantastic for new people starting, because it really gives you a relatively kind of punt for this. But unlike in the US where people invest regularly, like it doesn't seem to be a big thing in the UK. So actually seeing my friends in high paid sales jobs not really investing in the market or in private companies, I think it was quite eye-opening for them and kind of our cohort, as well as the people who've been doing this for a long time, that this is part of that kind of growth bit. And if you can almost invest in a friend, there's quite a bond that you've created from that. Creates a lot more stress for me knowing my best friends have put more money in this than they definitely should have. But as we luckily are still going, it feels lots of positivity around that. So there's almost like the government, I think, are doing well for entrepreneurs in that piece. Obviously, I think when it comes to the exits for these things, they've made some big changes there, which will make a difference. But I think if anyone exits nowadays, they're doing very well. So they can pay a little more tax as they go through. But I think the big one seems to be like almost like a society, the view of investing in companies, investing in new concepts, and whether that's an amazing little cheese and wine shop in a little kind of rural part, watching those kind of businesses, it just feels like there's this, we can help each other a lot more in these. And certainly I look at these things, and when Clay's ever produces some money for me, it will be a really hot thing for me to look for the next group of people who are coming through.
And you were never attracted by the whole crowdfunding thing, or like, people that's had mixed response kind of like recently, but kind of the whole equity for punks thing with Brewdog was kind of like, was an amazing scheme and generated lots for them in the early days.
Yeah, I feel like I've done crowdfunding because we got so many investors, even though we didn't go through one of the platforms. And I think it makes a lot of sense from almost like a marketing piece. There was I can't remember. There was a company called like Kickstarter where you invested, but you got something for it. So
Yeah.
you were building some little widget or gadget, and you felt like you were kind of like bankrolling a company and sort of getting shares, sort of buying the first kind of prototype or something. And I always thought that felt like a really nice thing. And it means that you end up getting people who love the thing that you do. So although Clays is not designed for shooters, I would imagine a good half of our cap table are avid shooters and really enjoy it. And therefore they invested in something they liked. And you think if you were to build something for a bicycle or for skiing, whatever it is, you'd naturally find people who like that kind of thing and would grow. So I think the Crowdcube type things, I think they really bring the right kind of like your champions of your company before you even start, before you open. We do a competition most summers where we get some of our some of our best people who play our game who come regularly. And the competition between them is just brilliant. They've almost built like a bit of a community, and you've got some champions of your brand from this. And it's actually interesting. We tried when we launched some new games to run some of them through them and let them play, but because they're so good at the game and know it so well, they have the same kind of bias that we do. So everyone's going, "Oh, this is brilliant!" Like, and we had this. We for the Olympics last year, we built an Olympic version of the game, so you could play it exactly like the Olympians do. So you shoot these 25 targets, and the groups were getting kind of in the region of 10 to 20 hits each time, and it was like, oh, this is pretty good. These are roughly the numbers we want to see, and some people will improve as it goes on. And then we tried it with a group who'd never played plays before, and out of a group of 10, 5 didn't hit a single target, and like the average was about 1 hit out of 25. We were like, well, we've not built that game quite right. So it helped us learn to build in like a handicap system and allow people to shoot at different speeds and things. But again, it comes down to champions of your brand, and I think these crowdfunding websites do a good chance of you finding your champions before you've ever launched. I mean, God, what I wouldn't have given to have champions of Clays the day we opened, and the same day we opened, Boris Johnson went on TV saying, "Don't go out to bars." And I could hear it in his voice. He was saying, also, don't go to Tom's bar. It just felt like a real personal attack as he sat there with his mane of hair telling everyone to stay at home and hunker down for Omicron? Whatever it was called. Felt like a long time ago now, but...
Yeah, it does feel like a long time ago now. My last question, and sorry, this is because we are a competitive bunch of core recruitment and we go out and we do all this stuff as well. But as you're playing the game, if somebody isn't hitting target, does your target catchment area actually grow so that it gets slightly easier to hit the target or not?
I think it's more how many drinks you've had helps settle everything. We do this little kind of flash on the screen, which tells you where you've shot. And I know you've shot before, but I've only shot about 5 or 6 times and only a couple of times before. And there's always an elderly gentleman who puts his hand on your lower back and whispers in your ear, you were slightly behind that one, or you're slightly in front of that one. And you go, okay, I'll try again. And we built that little kind of marker on the screen to let you know. And what actually happens, I think people just get better at it. We've always had this nice kind of almost challenge that people who play video games a lot seem to be very good at our game, and people who shoot an awful lot are very good at the game. And we did a small competition where we got one of each together, and the video gamer won by an absolute mile. So I think it's like this kind of like learning when you've missed piece that they learn as we try and make it easier and easier for groups. But no, if Stuart's beating you, Christian, it's not because of any algorithm in the game. He's just a better shot. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, we all definitely seem to get a hell of a lot better at it the more that we've had to drink, which I don't know if there's a mixed message in there about drinking and shooting or something. But anyway, there you go. Tom, I really enjoyed the chat. Best of luck with all the expansion plans and best of luck with America, and keep on doing all the great work.
It's great to see you. Thank you. Cheers.